What do you do if you think you have mold? Well, the first thing that I recommend you do is to get it tested.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Testing for mold. What you need to know as somebody who is considering getting this done, maybe you're an individual who's suspicious of mold. It is very important to understand that your fears, paranoia, suspicions could be very much so valid. It is also important to understand what mold testing does. Mold testing is a great way to identify whether or not you have a problem. You can do mold testing a number of different ways. You can do the petri dish method. You can do the petri dish method. You can do the petri dish method. You set a petri dish out and you close it up, and then in a couple of days, you may or may not have mold in it. That is a very common method that a lot of homeowners who are DIYing it do. However, I suggest just hiring a professional to come in and perform a mold test, whether or not you're a renter or a homeowner. Because for a renter, having a professional come in who is licensed in their state, and if your state doesn't offer licensing for mold, then certified. But if an individual can come in and test for the mold, you can then have that test as a baseline and as grounds to win an argument with your landlord, who may or may not be a slumlord. If you're a renter and you're truly in a really bad situation with mold and moisture and humidity and whatnot, highly suggest going that route. I really do. If you are a homeowner who is in that predicament and you aren't sure where to start, I would highly suggest starting with
mold testing.
I cannot speak for other states, but I can tell you that there's only, I think, 5 states that actually regulate mold testing and removal, Florida being one of them. In Florida, an individual can hold 2 licensing. They can hold a remediator's license and they can hold an assessor licensing. It's not required that you have to have both. You can hold one of the 2. A number of people hold both, but the caveat with holding both is that the individual who holds both licensing, they cannot perform the same activities on the same job.
In other words,
that individual cannot come to your house, assess the mold, and then the next day come back and remediate the mold. It's very important as a homeowner that you understand this, because you shouldn't be working with somebody who does that, because there is a big conflict of interest in that.
Just putting that out there. Now,
this video isn't necessarily for people who live in Florida. This is just a video that covers kind of all things mold testing. A good mold tester is going to be able to come into your home, and they are going to probably do surface swabs. They're going to take air samples, and they're going to do a visual inspection. With their tools, they're going to be able to come into your home and identify what's going on and what might be causing that mold. They can also identify the type of mold. Why is it important to know the type of mold?
Most people would argue that it's not important. All mold is bad mold, and yes, I agree with that. However, there's some people who get hyper technical
about this whole thing, and they want to know whether or not that mold species releases mycotoxins or not. By testing this, you can understand that, and you could figure out the best way to remediate that specific type of mold species based on mycotoxins, because not every mold species creates mycotoxins. That gets like really super technical, and it most of the time just overwhelms people. The reality of the situation is if you perform proper remediation, you get rid of the mold, whether or not it produces mycotoxins or not. Mold testing is essentially the process of getting a baseline of your home and a baseline of the situation that you're dealing with. Once a mold test is completed, typically you will then call a mold remediation company, a mold removal company, and that company would come in. More often than not, they should ask for the mold report that was completed. A good remediation company is going to want that report. Now, a good remediation company is going to take the report by the mold assessor. They're going to come up with a plan for removal. More often than not are going to follow their protocol. And if that is all performed properly, you should no longer be dealing with mold. So that is the gist of mold testing. Can you do mold testing yourself? Absolutely, you can. Will it hold legal water or legal grounds? Probably not. If you call a mold remediation company with your own DIY mold testing results, they more often than not are going to recommend that you call a professional. However, there are scenarios where the issue is blatantly obvious and you can kind of look past the DIY mold test and just get to work. However, the right and proper way to do it is to just have formal mold testing done. All that being said, how much should mold testing cost? So this is going to be an interesting one to talk about because it's going to vary. Okay, there are guys who will do it for $300 on the low end, and then there are guys that'll do it for $800-900 on the high end. Typically, if you're going to pay that much, you should be getting a lot more than just an air sample. I mean, there's guys that get really into it that charge much more than even $1,000. I mean, more often than not, if you're paying a premium, they're going to come in and they are going to do like a full analysis of your home. I mean, you'll know every single thing about your home. Basically almost like a full inspection that you would do at the purchase of a home. It's a very similar process, but these guys just specifically focus on mold, the building science kind of realm. I think mold testing is great, and I think if you're somebody who's looking to get mold testing done, you should in fact hire a professional. You have that peace of mind that it was done professionally. Somebody with lots of experience looked at it. And honestly, a lot of these mold assessors, they are really good dudes. They're very knowledgeable. Some of them were previous remediators, others are biologists, and you get a lot of information just standing in the home talking to them. The value you get of having a mold test, in my opinion, it definitely exceeds whatever you pay for it. Here at Drive Daddy Restoration, we don't offer mold testing. We perform the mold removal, which is the fun stuff. But we definitely have a number of mold assessors who are reasonably priced that we can recommend to you. That being said, thank you guys for watching. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment below, reach out to us. You know what to do. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next one. You know, I just feel like my life purpose is to get paid to destroy drywall and clean up really nasty messes and uninvited indoor ecosystems of very strange biological matter that somehow are related to mushrooms and that create weird invisible issues. Pretty crazy.